Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I am your host, JP John Paz. With me today is a very special guest. You can hear him on the Hamid Media Group, RTW. You can see him on Twitch. He's a podcast host. You can see him on Uncanceled, the new podcast as well. He is known as Rad Rob, aka Radicalized Rob. Rob Francois, welcome to the two-man power trip. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very well, Paz. Thanks for having me. I've been wanting to do your shows for quite some time now. So when you messaged me and said, "Hey, man, do you want to do my show?" I jumped at the chance because I always love doing shows with you, you and Chad when you're on my shows, and I'm really excited to talk to you tonight.
You seem like you got a lot of wrestling knowledge, which I appreciate. I like the
Little
old
bit.
school fans.
A little bit. I'm an old guy. I'm an old school guy. So I've been watching since 1988. So I got a little bit of knowledge.
What have you been up to lately, though? We'll get into that later, but what have you been up to? I know you got a lot of podcasts going on right now.
Good Lord. I don't know how you do it because you're always busy. But yeah, I've taken on quite a few projects lately. I started podcasting about 3 years ago just to do a fan cast, a review show. I used to review the shows every week. But lately, about 6 months ago, about 8 months ago, 6 to 8 months ago, I decided I can't watch the current product right now. So I kind of took a step back. So my podcast, RTW Main Event, has kind of transformed into a comedy show with Ocho and I. Ocho, formerly of the Brothers Grappler. He also does a show, Bromance, with Vince Russo on YouTube.
Yep.
So Ocho and I pretty much just try to pop each other the entire show. It's a silly, hour and a half comedy show that we do. But on the Hameen Media Group, I also have RTW Rewind, which used to be an old school wrestling show, but then I transformed that into anything retro, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, music, TV, sports, cartoons, you name it. So that's what I'm doing primarily for HMG, as well as producing some of their content. I was supposed to have a show on the Realm Network, which is still in the works, but we decided to launch it early, and you had mentioned it in the intro, which is Uncanceled, with former WWE NXT referee Drake Wirtz, who you had on your show about 3-4 weeks ago, right?
Yep.
Very polarizing guy. A lot of people don't like him. He's a heat magnet right now. But we release that every Friday for free. We talk about current events. Talk about him running for office. He's running for state representative in Florida for District 30. Super, super humble guy, as you know. But gets a bad rap for his political views, obviously, in the current political climate. So, yeah, I got that going on. I'm producing content for the Patreon for that, and I also stream on Twitch two times a week, playing old school video games. My YouTube channel. So, yeah, between all that, working a full-time job, and being a husband and a father of a 3-year-old daughter, my time is very, very limited. I'm almost like Vince McMahon. I sleep like 4 hours a night, but I keep grinding. 45 years old, and I just finally decided to take up some hobbies.
Nice. Now, you mentioned not on Realm yet. Is this because of all the controversy going on? Not really controversy, but all the back end stuff with Realm they're having a problem with.
It wasn't because of that. It was actually because Vince, and I could stooge off. Vince did not want to release 4 or 5 conservative shows all in a row. He's looking for somebody on the other side of the aisle, on the left, to come on, do a show and voice their opinion, but nobody's taken him up on it yet. So Drake and I decided that we didn't want to wait because what he has to say is too important right now. So hopefully it'll be on Realm at some point. But that was the initial plan. But then Vince started getting a ton of heat for having Aubrey Huff on there, for having Val Venus. Vince didn't want another polarizing figure on the right. Yet he kind of wants to find some balance.
Gotcha. I think he should be able to find somebody, though. Hopefully, anyway, from the other side.
I mean, anybody's welcome. He said anybody is welcome to come on there, and he'll give him a platform. But yeah, nobody's jumped up to that yet.
So with you in this show, it's just strictly Patreon, or are you having it elsewhere as well?
We release the audio version for free on Fridays on all major podcast platforms, but for the Patreon subscribers, which we already have, we release it the video version early and ad-free on Tuesdays. And for the higher tiers, they also get bonus content of watch-alongs of Drake's old death matches. We're going to be doing matches of him, his matches that he refed in NXT, what was going on inside, even right down to what they told him in his headset, in his earpiece. He's going to really break it down and let people in on the days, on the ins and outs of NXT. I kind of break down the fourth wall and give everybody some backstage access. So it's good stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I'm learning about how the business works. And he said he's not going to have another run there, so he's not worried about, about telling everybody what went on from day to day. So that's I'm really looking forward to getting into that stuff.
Yeah, see, that stuff is really cool because he was the head ref for NXT,
Yeah.
had a good relationship with Triple H, really good with Triple H at one point. And obviously, you got the IFB, you got, the stuff, you getting all this info from not only Triple H, but maybe the agent of the match or whatever. So there's definitely some tidbits of information away from all the political stuff. I'm talking just wrestling, NXT. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff that he has and a lot of stories he could tell.
He had a good 7-year run. I mean, not a lot of people get that kind of run. So, and he was a trusted asset. I think he was even involved in creative a little bit as well, or maybe was a talent liaison. But yeah, he's got tons of stories. So we're looking forward to getting into a lot of that.
He's got some stories on Joey Janela and Nick Gage that he's known those two guys forever too. So he's got some good stories for sure.
Yeah, we recently just did a watch along of a triple threat match that he had in CZW with Nick Gage and John Moxley. And it was really cool to hear his insights on what went on during that match, with the light tubes and all the gimmicks that they use and all the gaga. But it was very, very fun to do that. So yeah, you guys can find it on Patreon on our $10 tier. And he'll also call you for signing up. And once a month, you can have a live Q&A. So yeah, man,
wow, you guys are hitting it up. It's pretty good.
Yeah, we are inside access, and he's always open too. He says, send me an email. If you ever want to talk about, he's a born again Christian. If anybody ever wants to learn more about Jesus and all that, he's open for that. So we're trying to kind of change the stigma that he has of being just people want to label him as a QAnon guy, which he has nothing to do with, or a member of the Proud Boys. We're trying to put him in a positive light as a humble family man, a Christian who loves his country, and try to get away. I mean, you're never going to please everybody, that. But guys like Jim Cornette, Brian Last, Bixen Span, Sean Ross Sapp, they really don't like him. It's really fun watching them on Twitter kind of blow up whenever something happens.
With you and doing this show, any other shows, like as far as like a former wrestler or former personality where you want to co-host with them?
I would like to do something. I've asked Jimmy Corderas, and he's so busy doing his own stuff for Sportsnet Canada. I've approached Barry Horowitz. I think he would have some fantastic stories, being one of the best workers. Chad would say he's perfectly rated, but I think he's a little bit underrated as far as workers go.
Oh my God, yeah. How could he be perfectly rated? He's underrated. Because if you're like a true wrestling fan, right? And Barry Horowitz even said this about himself. Like he was probably underrated because the normal casual fan would be like, that guy's a jobber, or like, hey, what enhancement talent. So like a true blue fan would be like, no, he's not. You know what I mean? So I always think that I would say underrated for sure because he's so underappreciated by the normal casual fan. They're like, oh, he lost to this guy. Oh, he lost to that guy. But you didn't realize he's the carpenter of the match. He's the guy laying out the match. He's making the guy look good. And he's so good and so smooth in the ring. You don't realize he's the one creating, and leading the match most of the times.
Yeah, I mean, and he'll even admit that he was probably the best worker in the ring for, it's 75% of his matches, when he's wrestling Ultimate Warrior and, guys like that who can't really work. He shined him up and he made him look good. That was his job. But he could definitely work. Guys like Dale Wolf or Dusty Wolf was a great worker as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Iron Mike Sharp. I mean, there were a lot of good, quote, jobbers or enhancement talent back in the 80s when they had squash matches on Superstars and Wrestling Challenge that could probably outwork almost everybody they put over. But they knew their job and they did it well. And I love getting inside the mind of guys like that. So I'm always looking forward to talk to some of the guys that weren't as appreciated as others.
Barry would be great, and he loves to talk because I remember, man,
Yeah.
I had him on a few years ago. I asked him one question. He went on for like 20 minutes. It
Yeah.
was an awesome answer, and
Yeah.
it was one of those like open-ended thing. And I was like, okay, this could be real short or it could be long. And he expounded on it. It was like Warrior, and I mean, he just went
Yeah.
on and on. He basically was going on about everybody he's wrestled. I think maybe Hogan was the only guy he never ever didn't wrestle. Just what an amazing career for him.
Absolutely, 100%. And I love your show with Dr. Tom Pritchard. I had Tom on a couple years ago, and I mean, what a treat! I envy you being able to talk to him every week because, I mean, you want to really get the inside knowledge of professional wrestling. He's seen it all and done it all. I mean, he has literally trained the best in the business. Whether it be Kurt Angle or what I think was John Cena part of that, The Rock,
The Rock, yep.
Brock Lesnar. I mean, so many people have gone through his school and the Funkin' Dojo. And when Tom was training at WWF, WWE, he really, really is respected by everybody. And he's still doing it now in Knoxville, about 3 hours away from me with the Jacobs Pritchard Wrestling Academy, which I got to take a trip up there. Tom just had a birthday a few days ago as we're recording this. So I texted him happy birthday and told him I was going to, make the venture up to the school because they're really doing great stuff there. So,
What are you waiting for?
Yeah, I know. Time, really, literally just time to get up there. I haven't had any. But he's a great guy. He really is. So nice.
With you and doing interviews, as you mentioned, Dr. Tom, Jimmy Cordero, stuff like that. Who were some of your favorite interviews? Because I know you used to do a bunch more interviews, but obviously you kind of been doing other things. Like, so you've been keep busy doing other things. But who were some of your favorite interviews that you've done?
It's funny. Before the pandemic, it seemed like wrestlers were easier to book, and then for whatever reason, when they were out of work, it became harder. I don't know if you had that same problem, but
Yeah, weird. Weird. Doesn't make sense. Yeah,
it doesn't. And I don't know. When I first started out, I was fortunate enough to get guys like Tom on and Jimmy Corderas. Sean Mooney was a great guest when he was still doing his show Primetime with Sean Mooney. I love talking to him and just getting into his mind, when he was doing the event center, and he had some really good stories about that, having to do pre-tapes for 8-10 hours a day. PCO was great. He's a really, really sharp guy, really tough guy too. Has a ton of stories, a little bit hard to understand with his accent, and he likes to use the phone. He doesn't use Skype or StreamYard or anything like that. So, but he was a fun guest. Vince Russo has been on before. Vince can carry a conversation with a broom. Oh God, people are gonna kill me if I forget them. God, his name is escaping me. Scott Stanford, backstage guy for WWE. He does the news in New York as well. Dude, that guy has literally had like a 10-year run, and most people forget about him. They probably know him from the Zack Ryder videos when Ryder had his YouTube channel because he was always on there. But he is another fantastic guy. Tracy Smothers, I got to interview before he passed, about 3 months before he passed away. Him and his author of the book, John Cosper, were on. Tracy was a very, very sweet guy. We became friends in the last couple months of his life. That was a tough one to lose for me. He's really fighting cancer for so many years, but still was sharp as a tack. Didn't matter how he was feeling. He always had great stories. The Killer Bees I've had on, Jumpin' Jim Brunzell and B. Brian Blair. I've talked to them several times. Those are nice guys too. I'll tell you a funny story. I wanted to get Tito Santana on, and I don't know if you've ever had him on your show.
Oh yeah, a few times. Yep.
A few times. Well, I tried to get him once, and I won't tell you the amount of money that he wanted, but it was kind of obscene. I said,
really? Wow.
Yeah, I'll tell you off air. But yeah, I tried to get him on last year, and he wanted a certain number, and I didn't feel comfortable paying for that. I've never paid for a guest, but
right.
If it was reasonable, I might have thought about it. But yeah, that was a funny story. I'll tell you about that later. It was I was a little bit shocked by that, but he's a nice guy. But I guess with everybody shutting down, they got to work, and he's a teacher as well, so he may have been out of work for school. I don't know, but you can't fault these guys for trying to earn money. I mean, especially if they still have a name. But that's kind of a funny story. I've had several, decent names on that I can't remember because I'm old. But that's all back in my archives on RTW. If anybody ever wants to check that out.
I feel like a lot of the guys, maybe they heard somebody was charging, so they were trying to charge money now. I feel like
Possible.
not just him, not to make an excuse for him, not just him, but I feel like it's gotten a little crazy with some of the guys. You're just surprised, like, wow, these guys they're a little crazy. Not because they're not working really. So it's like, all right, I guess they're trying to make some money.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And then Conrad took all the rest. So
probably, well, pretty much, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So with you, how'd you get hooked up with Ben Hameen and the Hameen Media Group? Because you're clued in over there.
I'm part of the inner circle now, which is really, really cool. I'm a trusted asset, of Ben Hameen, the mastermind behind HMG. Matthew Schaffer Gage, MSG, had listened to my show and had messaged me. He does a South Park show called Suck My Balls, and he syndicated it and wanted me to put it on the network that I have, the Rad Rob Radio Network. And I said, sure, yeah, no problem. And he said, by the way, I listened to your show and I really, really like it. We just lost a retro show on our Sunday spot, and I think you'd be perfect for it. I like your voice. You have great production value. You know a lot about wrestling, so I think that'd be a good fit. And he mentioned it to Ben. And Jargo actually listened to one of your co-hosts there. Michael Jargo also heard it, and he's he's big into production and all that. He's an audio nerd. So he's like, yeah, he put in a good word for me too. Big Ray heard it. And, they all had positive things to say about my shows. And that's how I got plugged in. They put me on their Sunday spot on Hacker Hameen when they used to have that feed until they got censored by Podbean. Got hit with DMCAs for music they were using, which was fun. That was a nightmare to deal with for a while, which in turn is kind of what, led them to hook up with Vince Russo and go on the Realm. So they stopped being censored and stopped getting hit with copyrights. But yeah, that's how I got clued in. And, just putting out shows, making contacts, working hard. You know it is. I mean, you know how to network. You know how to build up your name. You've built up a great reputation, over the last, 7 years have you been doing it? 8 years? Somewhere around there?
6+. Yep.
6+. So
getting close to 7,
yeah. I just got right place, right time. And everybody there has been great. There's so much knowledge, whether it's Ben or Stevie Richards or Rip Rogers, Chris Silvio. The vets on there, they have so many talented guys that I love just sitting down and listening to them talk wrestling, because they break it down in a way that I've never even thought about it as a fan. For 30 something years, you kind of think you know it all until you actually listen to these guys that did it for a living. Like, Tom and all that, and the guys you were, Kevin Sullivan and all that. So I treasure every single time I get to work with them. Because they're just so super talented.
And Ben, it's funny. People even say to me, like, how does he know so much? Like, he's got such an intricate knowledge. But that Rip Rogers training, I mean, he's an OVW boy through and through.
That's right.
That's kind of the basis of his knowledge and how he knows this shit.
Yeah, between Rip and Al Snow, I mean, they learn from some of the best in the business. And there a lot of good names and good talent came through OVW that might not have made it. I mean, Ben has the mind. I mean, he's a creative genius. He could write for any company. But I guess due to, I don't think it's his gimmick, but due to the fact that he tells it like it is. If he's watching AEW and he saw something that was crap, he's going to call it out as crap. He's not afraid to lose a spot, if he has one over there, to critique wrestling, because he loves the business and he wants it to change for the better. And if he sees something he doesn't like, he's going to point it out. But on the other side, when he does like something, he puts it over. So, I mean, I don't know if that's hampered him, throughout the years of not getting a spot or getting a job in creative, but I mean, he's got the mind for it, and he's got the gift of gab. He worked improv. He's a super sharp, witty guy. I love working with Ben. He's probably going to slap me in the face for saying this, but behind the scenes, he's a super, super chill dude.
Good mentor to have. He's got a lot of knowledge.
Yep. Absolutely.
So what is your background, though? Just like in general, it isn't radio or communications or broadcasting or anything like that?
No, sir. Like I said, I picked it up 3 years ago. As a kid growing up watching wrestling, you know, I'd have a tape recorder and I'd pretend to be Gene Okerlund and do my own, you know, update and event centers and stuff like that. I was always, you know, just messing around with a camcorder or tape recorder as a kid, but never went to school. I wanted to go to Connecticut School of Broadcasting when I lived up in the Northeast, but I never pulled the trigger on it because I'm kind of lazy sometimes, and I never went through with it. But just, I guess I have, you know, a natural talent to talk apparently, and decided I want to do a podcast and been busting my butt, you know, in my 40s to try to build, you know, my brand and build a name. And you know, I'm not anywhere, you know, as good as I want to be. But I enjoy just talking to people. I love talking to you. I love talking to wrestlers. I just love conversing with anybody. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter what it's about. And thankfully, people have enjoyed my stuff. And, you know, I've had a decent chance to grow my brand.
So how did you actually so you're getting in podcasting, but how did you start? Was this with Reality Check, or was did you start on your own at first, or R&R, or what happened with you originally getting started in podcasting?
Started on my own before Reality Check. I started in December of 2018 with a guy named Jeff Johnson, who was known on Twitch and YouTube as Run with Turtles. And since I was given the moniker Rad Rob when I was a part of the DDP yoga community, we just merged our two names, Rad Turtles, and we used to be called the Rad Turtles Wrestling Podcast. And Jeff and I would just break down Raw and SmackDown and just give our opinion of the shows. And John Wangland had heard that, who was doing Wrestling with Reality. He had just broken off from Creative Control Network with Joe Feeney, and he was starting his own network, the Reality Check Podcast Network. He heard my show and DM'd me on Twitter and said, "Hey, man, I'm starting a new network. I really like your show. I'd like to bring you on." So from then on, we were working for him. I had a really, really good relationship with John. He made me a business partner. So we were both in charge of the network, you know, trying to get new talent, trying to get other people on board. Ran into some issues along the way because we're too stubborn people. We're too proud sometimes to kind of admit, you know, that we did something wrong. And we started to butt heads in about February of 2020. And we ended up dissolving our business relationship and really kind of getting nasty with each other, which I'm sure is your segue here to what Get My Go, what Get My Go is, which you had the Aussie guy on previously, and I'm sure you guys talked about it there. But you know, some things happened that just happened for a reason, and I liked working with John. We did have a great relationship at one point, but for whatever reason, we just couldn't work with each other anymore. But the animosity was there because just because of the way he you know, he cut me off. Just I've already, you know, documented this, you know, for a couple of years now, but yeah, we just got into kind of an internet war between our two shows and Twitter and all that. And Joe Feeney and Mike Durbin and the great and powerful Husey, Adam Hughes, decided to have me and Richie Reardon on. Richie was one of the co-hosts on a couple of shows that he did with John as well. And we spilled the beans. We told everybody what was going on, whether John was buying downloads for YouTube or his podcast, which he still vehemently denies to this day. And just kind of the ins and outs of our relationship. And that spun into what is known as Get My Go, the YouTube juggernaut.
So that, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, you guys had the conversation, no longer speaking after that, or you're still talking to him?
Nah, I wanted to kind of drop it because I had been carrying this, you know, this hatred and this tension around on my back, you know, for 15, 17 months, whatever it was. And I decided I emailed John and said, "Hey, you know, I want to bury the hatchet." So we did that publicly. We billed it as the Showdown and booked it for a couple of weeks and did it live on YouTube and had a pretty good turnout. A lot of people in chat were pretty heated. A lot of anti-Wangland Get My Go fans were in there. But yeah, you know, I don't want to say I'm punching down, and I said I wouldn't speak poorly of him in public, but I had so many other projects going on that I don't need to focus my attention towards that stuff anymore. So I just felt it was time to get rid of it and get it off my chest and drop it. I'm not speaking to him, but I assured him that I wouldn't say anything negative about him in the future publicly. So if Get My Go wants to do something other than John Wangland, I'll definitely be a part of that. But that chapter of my life has closed. But you were also on the show during the Christmas show too. That was fun last year.
Yeah, it was a good show. Very comical. Very entertaining. So no more superstar sessions, I guess.
No more superstar sessions. If anybody doesn't know what that is, it was my little spin-off of Get My Go, where I'd sit down with. I did an episode with the Chadster. I did one with Midnight Mike for the Midnight Jury, and we watched. We did a watch along of Wangland and Christopher Martin watching Superstars from '92, and just watched them for a half hour, an hour, just butcher everything and give false facts and butcher the English language. And we just did our own parody of that. And poor Chad didn't want to do any more after that. We had like a 3-hour recording session. He's like, I can't listen to these guys anymore. His head explodes because he's a wrestling historian like yourself. And whenever those guys would give out, false knowledge or just start making stuff up or say how bad this was or how bad that was, and they were never in the ring before, he couldn't take that anymore. So no, I'm done with that. I had a blast working with Durban and Feeney and those guys doing that project, but I'm on to bigger and better things.
How did Get My Go start anyway? Was that you and your footage and your audio, or was that somebody else?
They used a lot of the podcasts that John had put up on his feed, but I did have some inside stuff from Skype or whatever that we recorded that I gave to Durban. But after the initial show that Richie and I were on, Durban and Husey decided that they were gonna just listen to one of John's episodes. It was his farewell episode when he said he was leaving podcasting and then came back 12 days later. So they did a parody of that. They put it up on YouTube. People loved it, and it just it skyrocketed from there. So they said, I think we got something with this. So they decided to just pick apart more podcasts or watch alongs and stuff like that. And they had you on. They had Chad on, Dean, the Aussie guy, Ben Hameen was on it. Who else is? Jeff Lane was on it. So it just it literally took on a life of its own and just snowballed. And now it's in audio form, and they're getting thousands of downloads on the audio version of the YouTube show. It's amazing. And Mike Durban is such a great video editor, and he put a lot of time into that. So you got to give him credit for that. A lot of work was put in, but sometimes it's just really, really hard listening to those podcasts of them. It got to the point where Husey didn't even want to do the show anymore because he couldn't even take it. But yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how that show just kind of organically rose, to one of the top shows on YouTube.
So for most of those guys and for you, was it comedy? Was it revenge? Was it pissed off? Was it something where you can get some steam off? Like, why that show, particularly with him? Because everyone has a backstory with him, oddly enough.
Yeah, I mean, Feeney had actually Feeney, Hughes, and Durban all had a backstory, working him in the creative control. And John getting kind of into a Twitter war with Creative Control Network a couple years ago. So they had their little axe to grind with him on that. But for them, it was comedy. For them, it was just making fun of a guy that they thought was horrible at podcasting. Like Chad likes to say, he was John Wang was a cosplay podcaster. But for me, it was a vehicle for me to blow off some steam. And revenge was absolutely a part of it. I completely detested the guy just by the way things were handled when I left his network. So for me, it was a good chance to kind of one up him and kind of get his go. And if people don't know what the term "Get My Go" is, It's just John has a habit of not saying things correctly and kind of butchering cliches. He meant to say "get my goat," which is an old saying, but several times he said "get my go," and again, that's just something that he said that literally spawned a show. And Durban wrote a theme song for it and all that. It's just it's ridiculous. But yeah, that it was definitely revenge for me, and it wasn't healthy. I was carrying all that around. You know, it's a lot of mental stress, and there's dude. When you break it down, it's literally just people podcasting and watching wrestling, but yet we took a lot of the stuff personal, and kind of had vendettas against each other. But in the bigger scope of the world, I got so much going on. I'm a dad, I'm a husband. I don't want that stuff is out there in public, but my daughter's could possibly hear all this stuff one day and ask me about it, and I'm gonna have to explain to her what happened. But it was time for me to just move on and move on to the projects I got, like my shows, my Twitch, my YouTube, the stuff for with HMG and Russo's brand. So, yeah, just time to move on.
With you and obviously unhealthy stuff, did you listen to him taking like cheap shots at you too? Because it seemed like, okay, he makes fun of everybody on the show, but
Yeah.
then he slides in an extra dig or two at you. I mean, obviously you got to take it a little personal sometimes.
I did, and that's kind of what kept me going. With kept my go, and even doing stuff on my own feed. I wouldn't listen to it unless somebody told me like, "Hey, here's a timestamp. You might want to listen to what he's saying." And John brought up a lot of personal stuff. I had told him, something in private about an arrest that I had, 10, 15 years ago, and he ended up telling somebody else in our group, and then once we had dissolved our business relationship, he was holding that over my head, saying, "I'm going to tell everybody, about your past and blah 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 blah." So then I took the power away from him and went on my own. And said, "All right, dude, screw that. If you're going to hold it over my head, you know what? I'm going to tell everybody what happened." And then I released an hour-long show about the stuff that happened between me and John, and I talked about my past. I'm an open book. I have nothing to hide. But it's kind of a dick move by him to do that. Something I told him in confidence. And he's a counselor, for crying out loud. He counsels former veterans. Just tries to help them. That's his job. He'll drive hundreds of miles around upstate New York, visiting former vets to counsel them and kind of help them with the transition of getting back to regular life. And then and this is what's funny about it is I said that to him when I did the Showdown show. I said, "John, you're a counselor. Why in God's name would you ever tell anybody something that I told you in confidence?" And he literally said, "Yeah, well, you're not my patient." I mean, that kind of tells you the character of, and I'm not saying anything. I'm not talking out of school. That's public knowledge that he said that. So yeah, man, I heard him take digs at me, and he would say something about Feeney and Durban and Husey. But then when it got to me, it really got personal, and he really took 10, 20, 30 minutes just talking about me. So I was living in his head rent free for quite a while.
There was a big feud there. I was surprised you guys got together and had that little powwow. A lot of people were saying work shoot was the rumor. Not so though. Not true.
Not true. Everything that happened was real. I will say this: we did talk off air for about an hour, just kind of burying everything privately. Then we decided, to go out there and do it publicly. And he wasn't he wasn't going to take the gloves off, but I'm a showman. I'm an entertainer. I know what the people wanted to see, so I asked him, hard hitting questions, and he would deny, and then people in the chat would get him all riled up, and he'd start talking about, Big Josh Hinkle or Midnight Mike or Durban was in there, or Husey and Feeney was in chat, and a lot of people were in there, and he would get incensed by some of the comments that I kept putting up on the screen with the StreamYard gimmick, and he just kind of showed his true colors. But yeah, a lot of people didn't think he's going to show up, but he did. But no, nothing was worked during the whole thing. It was 100% accurate, 100% shoot.
What if he didn't show up? What would you have done? Because you promoted it.
If he didn't show up, I probably would have buried him. I would have. I would have honored my commitment to him that this will be the last time I talk about you publicly. But I would have spent the better part of an hour just completely burying him.
With Get My Go, you said that you won't be doing it. Will they be doing it? Is the show going to continue?
Inside word that I've gotten recently is the show will continue once the summer's over. Not sure what the topic is going to be. There might still be some meat on the bone when it comes to Wangland and Chris Martin, but a couple of the guys want to move on to other targets. I don't want to give away who. There's a lot more polarizing people that are on YouTube or in the wrestling podcast world, but there's always somebody that they can go to. But yeah, Get My Go will be coming back hopefully this fall.
With that, it's funny because I always say John's actually pretty funny and pretty entertaining, and people will say it's unintentional, blah blah. But is it unintentional, or is this work by him at all, or is this totally just the way he is?
He claimed that he would say a lot of stuff because he knew we were watching and we were listening. Right. But if you go back to some of the earlier stuff, he's not an eloquent speaker, and he gets some words jumbled up a lot of times, and it's just and no fault of his own. It's just a natural thing that he does. I think it maybe it's some kind of a speech impediment, or maybe he has some trigger words that kind of gets him back on track sometimes. But I don't know. I can't explain. It's fascinating. Joe Feeney likes to call John Wangland a sociopath, and we always wanted to take some clips from John's show and bring on a therapist or a psychiatrist and just have them listen to it and break it down on a level that we can't, and just see if we're right about this guy. Is he a compulsive liar? Is he a sociopath? That might come down the road in the future. But it depends. He told me, yeah, I know you guys are watching. I know you guys are listening. So I would say certain things to kind of fire you up. But all in all, we just really, and this is still my opinion. We just don't think he's a good podcaster. We think he's boring. We think he's monotone. He lacks charisma. And again, not his fault. But some people just aren't meant to be podcasters or entertainers. Paz, there's 700,000 podcasts out there. Not everybody should have a microphone in front of them. It does take a special talent to develop a following and to get people to listen or watch your content. And not everybody can do that. But if he wants to keep doing it for fun, God bless him. Because there's nothing wrong with it. He shouldn't expect anything to come out of it. It's very, very hard, as you know, to make money in podcasting unless you have sponsors. Unless you're working for somebody else, like a Conrad, or if you're on Podcast One or MLW Radio, we're not all going to get rich doing this. Most of us just do it because we love doing it.
Very true. So is it therapeutic at all to not do it anymore, or was it therapeutic to do the show? And you know what I mean? It's almost like kind of a weird thing there, because it was therapeutic to do it, but now you're not doing it, so you may be better off in the end. So it may be therapeutic to not do it.
That's a great question, because it definitely was therapeutic to do it, because I was able to get a lot of that off my chest. I was able to say a lot of things to him, through a show that I couldn't say to his face, because there were many times where, neither of us wanted to even talk to each other. But yet we would still go on both of our shows and just kind of, it's childish. It really is. It's high school bullshit. It was definitely therapeutic to do it. But now that I've dropped it, it's a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to stress over it. I don't have to listen to his show. I don't have to worry about what did he say about me this week. I love doing Get My Go. I really did. I had so much fun just getting that frustration and that anger out. But in the end of the day, dude, I feel so much better that I don't have to worry about it. I could just focus on the tasks at hand, which is going to work, trying to spend time with my wife and my kid, and then doing all the projects that I have, and not have to worry about his dumbass.
With, obviously, Get My Go and doing that show and everything else, do you think that, I don't know, it's one of those things where it's like, yes, it's for comedy purposes. Yes, it's a decent show, as I love to say. It's a decent show. Is it any way that they're all trying to get back at him in their own way? Because somehow he's touched each one of them, and maybe, as according to them, lied to them, or tricked them, or deceived them, or said he was going to do a show with them, and then never happened. According to them, don't know. It's all speculation. We don't know, as Disco likes to say. Um, what do you think about that, though? Is it? I don't know. To me, there's a little bit more to it. Everyone has their own story with him. It might be a little personal with him.
I think it is. I mean, if you want to break it down for each guy, obviously Joe Feeney giving John his break and putting his show on creative control in the early days, and then John leaving and wanting to create his own network and still ask Feeney for help. Kind of be a mentor. Like, hey, what do I do with this? Or how do I do this? How do I grow this? How do I do that? And it's like, dude, you just left me and now you're asking me for advice. You're going to be
taking his model. Yeah, he's taking his model. Yeah,
his business model and try to just be a carbon copy of it. So there's obviously heat there, but I mean Joe's gotten over that. Joe, as far as Joe goes, and I don't want to speak for him, but I know Joe well enough that he just had fun picking apart the show. Like, he didn't like the constant lying, that John would do, and that's really just the genesis of the show, is that they just wanted to point out the inconsistencies with John's stories, and just how bad he really is at podcasting. Durban and Husey, they just kind of had their own spats with him because they're guilty by association. Anybody that was involved with CCN was going to get it from John. So and it's gang mentality. I mean, they just they're a pack. They hunt together, and you mess with one, you're going to mess with all of us. So that's kind of where that whole thing started. So what started out as a fun little podcast war that Husey got bored on a Sunday afternoon, whatever, on Twitter, and decided to kind of just needle John a little bit, and then put hashtag podcast war on it as a joke. John took a lot of that personally, and from there, it literally blew up into a Twitter war, a real war, and then everybody got involved on their own podcast feeds, and then again, with the split that I had with them, it just it kind of evolved from there into GMG. But yeah, I mean, it was personal between a few of them. John talked a lot of shit about Husey and Durban publicly, when a lot of it wasn't founded by anything. It just, they were protecting Joe. They were protecting creative control. So things just got out of hand, dude, as things happen to do in life. And when you have all these other people that are looking at the tweets and are fans of the brand or fans of creative control, and they'd see this guy picking on them. Again, it's a gang mentality. It's the flock. They're all going to come after. You've seen it plenty of times.
Yep.
So things just got out of control, and I don't know. I just I'm glad to be out of it, and I know they're a little bit tired of talking about him too. That's why they want to kind of do something fresh and new and kind of move on. But sometimes it's so bad you can't help it. You just can't help going back to what you know, and they've got a really huge following.
So I guess season 1 is over. That last story that Dean found, I don't even know when it was from. I guess it's from a while ago. You're on the call while he's saying this, when he gets noticed, and then he gets noticed again. That's got to be one of the funniest clips, probably the best clip in the history of the show. But it's so funny. It just coincidentally, he found it. And it's like, okay, maybe this will be the last thing we kind of play as far as a clip. I mean, that would be the perfect ending. What did you think? Did you think like, okay, this is a true story? Because even Meltzer had like one of these funny stories that people recognize him. I just think it's hilarious because, you're not a wrestler. Obviously, he's just a podcaster. Like, if you're John Cena, you're getting noticed. Okay, like I'll buy it, or whoever, Bo Dallas, or or any wrestler really. But like a podcaster, even Meltzer, who's the king of the dirt sheets, but that's even a little far fetched. Like, not everybody knows what he looks like. You know what I mean? So
Right.
to me, what was your thoughts? You're in the room, or you're in the call, if you will, while he's saying that story. I mean, were you laughing? Did you think it was great? Because listening to it, I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, that's so great. He's getting noticed from just randomly from like some kid. Like, I don't know. It's a great story.
It was a great story, and what's funny, Paz, is sometimes when you're in the middle of it and you're in the thick of things and you're in the trenches with somebody, and you're trying to build your business and grow your brand. Sometimes you don't see things the way they truly are, and there's a lot that went on that I didn't see, that I had rose-colored glasses on for. I didn't see all the shortcomings of John. I didn't see, some of the untruths that he was telling. He said, "Hey, dude, this is what we have. These are the numbers." I don't know if they're bought and paid for. He still denies it, but he's showing me that he has thousands and thousands of downloads, and what am I going to do? I mean, it's right there. He'd show me screenshots of it, and he'd say, "Yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to grow this brand. We're going to be a big deal. We're making some headway." He even put out a little press release he wanted to put out for to get advertisers in, saying that we've been doing this for so and so amount of years. We've gotten this many downloads. We've been featured on, WrestleZone and Fightful and a couple, other publications or websites. He thought he thought it was a big deal. And I don't know if he just believed his own hype or believes some of the, lies that he may have said were true. I don't know, but I don't know. I don't even remember that entire scenario that Dean had. I don't know where he found that clip from, but it's just it's captivating. It really is. I think John has gotten more attention and more more people were noticing him because of what we did with Get My Go than he actually got on his own. So a lot of us kind of think that he might have been feeding information or trying to do something intentional to get noticed, because as long as he keeps saying something noteworthy or something ridiculous, we're going to be right there to cover it. So a lot of people say even bad press is good press as long as they're talking about you. That's a good thing. So there's something to that too. I mean, maybe he was kind of egging all of us on to get us to keep talking about him, because at least we're talking about him. At least somebody knows who he is, and maybe they'll go back and listen to the show. So in the end, it benefits him. And Feeney said that for many, many months. Like, why do we keep giving this guy attention? Because he's only relevant because we're talking about him. We shouldn't be giving him any attention at all. Maybe he'll just kind of curl up and go away. But I forgot what your initial question was. Yeah. It's a weird situation.
Well, with him, it's over now, right? You're saying it's over?
It's over.
Dead, buried, gone?
That's it. Yep.
Let's move on to some serious stuff here, all right? Let's talk about current pro wrestling. Do you watch current wrestling? I know you do a little bit, but are you obviously, because we've done some WrestleMania stuff together, we've talked a lot about wrestling, but do you really watch the current product week to week, day to day?
Week to week, I do not. I will watch WWE pay-per-views. Like I watched SummerSlam, I watched Money in the Bank, but I don't watch Raw. I don't watch SmackDown. I might look up clips on YouTube if I heard something was good. Like, I've been following a lot of Roman Reigns' work because I think he's obviously doing the best stuff of his career, and quite possibly could be the the most entertaining in wrestling as a whole right now. But John, listening to or watching wrestling back in the 80s and 90s, and even in the early 2000s, when it was still good, compared to what's on now, it's not my cup of tea. With AEW, it's just I like psychology. I like good booking. I like good angles. I don't like the flipping and flopping and flying. I don't like that nobody sells anything anymore. You could even throw NXT in there as well, especially with takeovers. With 500 false finishes and nobody sells anything. And then when you get to Raw and SmackDown, I've heard SmackDown is actually a little bit better than what it used to be, but Raw is still a 3-hour dumpster fire. I got tired of my intelligence being insulted by WWE, especially because I've been watching it for so long. Some of the things that they do just doesn't make sense. I don't know why they kind of went down that path. They still have so many talented people that work there that know the wrestling business, even down to Vince McMahon himself, who's been doing it for 50 years or 60 years. It blows my mind that I don't know if they're just complacent that they are the number one game in town and they're not worried about anybody else, or maybe it's Vince McMahon's, ego, that nobody else would ever topple them. They're still the global giant WWE. But I can't watch it on a week-to-week basis when I don't enjoy it anymore. And I became really, really negative when I was reviewing the shows. And I always told my wife, I said, if I'm not having fun doing this, there's no point in doing it at all. All I do is just talk bad about WWE or AEW or Impact or whatever. So that's when I just decided to shift gears and kind of do something that was fun and kind of get away from the current product. What are your thoughts on what goes on today?
Not a big fan, obviously, as I used to be. Man, the 80s and 90s, that's
Oh,
the
yeah.
best.
Yeah.
That's the golden era, the king shit, if you will, of wrestling right there. I don't know, current product, not that into it. Raw is really rough to get through. SmackDown, I actually do like, but if let's just say you take Reigns off that show, I don't think I would like it. It's
Yeah.
like he's the focal point. He's the reason. The Usos are interesting again because of him. Heyman, which is so funny, people said that he's helped Reigns. Nope, it's the other way around. Reigns has helped Heyman. He's making Heyman interesting again. Because man, there was a while there where Heyman was just saying the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
It was getting so complacent. So this brought a new version of Heyman, and his facial expressions are back. You could tell he's full energy. He's working with the top guy. Cena comes back and injects like a little life into a good feud with Reigns. Obviously, Reigns knocks him off. I don't know. There's certain things I do like, and there's a lot of things I don't like about the current wrestling. The flip flop and fly stuff is just not to sound like Dusty, but literally the flipping and the flopping. It's just a little too much. I rather psychology, storytelling, larger than life characters. I rather see that. I'd rather see like a Stone Cold versus a Vince kind of feud rather than, let's just have an athletic contest where I can get all my shit in. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff is a little lame.
Yeah, it is. I absolutely agree. Why do moves just for doing this moves, just for the sake of doing moves? If you're not registering what's happening to you, if you're not selling it, how do you expect the crowd to get behind it? But I mean, it's a niche. Like wrestling has always been a niche audience, but it's even a bigger niche now with the current crop of wrestling fans. The fans that like the AEW stuff, you're going to have your hardcore, 6 to 600,000 and maybe 1.5 million, depending on with this Punk stuff and Daniel Bryan coming in and possibly Braun Strowman and whoever else. I feel bad for the homegrown talent in AEW that might be getting cast aside and relegated to Elevation or Dark. Because all these guys that they've signed from WWE, like Aleister Black and Christian, Sting, Big Show, Mark Henry, although they haven't wrestled, but Miro, and now CM Punk is there. Dude, at some point, people are going to get pissed because they're not getting featured. Like, they're supposed to be the alternative to WWE, but in my opinion, they're just kind of doing the same thing that TNA did and WCW did. It's just trying to get that, that stamp of approval from the guys that were there at the biggest game in town, just to get other people to tune in. Cody Rhodes said originally he wasn't going to cater to casual fans. He's going to cater to his fan base, and he didn't want to bring in all those talents. But obviously Tony Khan had bigger ideas than that. But I can't. I just can't sit through an hour or 2 hours of stuff that's just going to insult my intelligence as a wrestling fan, with the 50-50 booking. The horrible comedy that WWE does, that's toilet humor that Vince McMahon loves. I can't do it. Like the whole ninja stuff last year and the whole 24/7. They could have really had something with that title. They just completely turned into a slapstick thing. You know what I mean? And don't even get me started about the cinematic matches and all they had last year. Last year really kind of soured me on the product as a whole. But even with fans coming back, I still don't see anything redeeming about any show right now. The Punk stuff is kind of fascinating to see what he can do there, and I am excited to see Brock Lesnar back. But again, like you said, if you take those main guys away, the rest of the shows are just garbage to me.
It's definitely not as good as it once was. There's no doubt about that. And to have to bring those names back and really kind of feature them is kind of says a lot about the undertalent and even the creative of
Yeah.
how they're booking that younger talent. I mean, it's not good all the way around. Just the performers, yes, it could be their fault, but if you give them good creative, you can kind of hide a lot of the weaknesses. So, Heyman used to do that in ECW.
Mhm.
Russo in the Attitude Era did that a lot with a lot of the guys. So it's just one of those things where if booking was creative was a little bit better, maybe you can kind of get some juice into it and get some juice going. But instead, we'll bring back Goldberg and Lesnar and all the old names that used to draw money. Who they'll pop a rating for a little bit. We'll see how that works out long term.
They will, but in the end, like, who do you have that's a star there? Other than Roman Reigns. They did not. I haven't seen Kevin Owens at all. I don't know what's going on with him. Dolph Ziggler was turned into a joke. Bobby Roode was turned into a joke. Daniel Bryan left. You got Drew McIntyre's great, but then they're doing the whole, sword, gimmick with him and I don't know.
Yeah, and they made that feud not about how they were friends forever, and he basically turned his back at him.
Yeah.
They turned it into he destroyed his bike and he broke his sword. Then it wasn't his sword; it was a fake sword. Like, oh god.
Now Bobby
So
Lashley
bad.
is a star. Like they finally put some steam behind him and gave him a really decent push. And putting him with MVP was the smartest thing they ever did.
Yep.
Because
It's funny with Lashley, 44 years old. He's not a young guy by any stretch.
He's not. And I mean, just looking at him, you couldn't even tell that he's that old.
No.
But he learned a lot when he left and went to Impact, and he really became, a star on his own, just like McIntyre did as well.
Yep.
Just getting away from WWE and kind of finding what their character really was. It spoke volumes. But I mean, even when Lashley first came back, he got turned into a joke and had a horrible program with Sami Zayn, Sami's one of the greatest workers there is. But even he couldn't get anything out of him. But you just never know, what things happen by accident. A lot of the best gimmicks or characters that have come out of wrestling have been kind of by accident. Look what Vince had for Stone Cold. That he had the ringmaster. His wife, Steve's wife, made a joke about his tea getting cold and said Stone Cold, and a trigger went, a light bulb went off, and you go from there. But you look at how many misses that Vince McMahon has had over the years. A lot of people like to call him a genius, but look at some of those gimmicks from the early to mid 90s, the new generation stuff that Chad does. It's not all good stuff when you got, Duke the Dumpster Drosy and the Goon and Mantar and, all these horrible gimmicks. That's still Vince McMahon today, just on a different scale. If he had his way, I'm sure he'd still have some of those horrible gimmicks. I mean, look what he did with Karrion Kross, for crying out loud. You got a guy that's just a monster in NXT and Impact and everywhere else he's been, gets called up to the main roster. They take his amazing entrance away. They put this weird, I don't know, BDSM headgear on him and suspenders, and it's just, they have him lose to Jeff Hardy in his first appearance after all that. Vince McMahon is completely out of touch, and he clearly wanted to put his stamp on it. He didn't want to have a guy from somewhere else or a Triple H pet project or whatever. Whenever these guys get called up to the main roster, he seems to kind of want put his own kind of spin on things, and and he just doesn't know what he's doing with it anymore. I don't think he has the vision that he used to have.
And where's Scarlett? Cross is missing Scarlett. Huge part of the act.
I think Scarlett is taking time off for personal reasons. Last I heard, I think she is coming back, but I think she had something that she had to attend to and couldn't be there week to week. That's what I heard. But yeah, that's a big part of the presentation of Karrion Kross is having her with them. But dude, if they turn Kross into a laughing stock and a jobber, you want to talk about a huge opportunity that's missed, because he literally has the ability to carry that company if they wanted to put the ball behind him and give him that monster push. He is a good enough worker, and he's a good enough talent. He's a good promo. He's got a great look. He's a big guy. I really, really hope they turn it around. I mean, look what they did with Aleister Black, dude. I mean, that guy's got money written all over him, and they ruined him on the main roster. It's almost like they don't want to get called up because they know it's over for him.
It's crazy what they do sometimes. Like Cross, 6'4", 275-pound guys that can talk. Don't grow on trees.
No, they really
Vince,
don't.
you know what I mean, Vince? Come on,
You
don't
think
fuck
that
it
would
up.
be in Vince's wheelhouse?
Yeah,
For
weird.
whatever reason, he looks at him. He's like, "Oh, what the hell am I gonna do with this guy?" I don't know, dude. He doesn't get it, and it's sad to see. And if I was Triple H, I'd be pretty pissed off that you take my top guys and you bring them up to the main roster, because obviously you got to freshen things up and get some new faces in there, which I don't have a problem with that. But the fact that he brings all these guys up and they do nothing, like, who's the last guy that they brought up that really amounted to anything?
Can't even think it's been so long, because it feels like anybody
Right.
they bring up, they kill.
Yeah.
Really, the girls, I guess. Charlotte and stuff, when they brought her up, she was treated okay.
Yeah,
But
they've done well. But look at Asuka. Asuka was ruined for many, many years. Then they gave her a push again. Then they
Yep.
made, relegated her to being a jobber again. Like, God, Asuka, one of the toughest women in the entire world.
undefeated for
doing
3
comedy
years in NXT. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you got her doing comedy stuff and yelling in Japanese. Just, it's, dude, I don't get it. Bobby Roode has been a star everywhere he's gone. He had such a great gimmick in NXT with the glorious stuff. Everybody loved the theme song. The Nashville Predators even used that song during their Stanley Cup run a few years ago. And then what happens? They bring him up and they don't do anything with him. Kevin Owens got lucky by Finn Balor getting hurt. Kevin, lucked into the Universal title. Another thing that happened by accident. But then once they realized what they had with him, they tried to make him a carbon copy, Stone Cold. And there's only one Steve Austin. That's obviously not going to happen. And I love Kevin Owens. But having him in a porta potty and getting beat up by Braun Strowman, like, Kevin Steen doesn't deserve stuff like that. So and now they want to retool NXT and kind of rebrand them. I feel bad for the talent there because they got to go to work every day. Like, all right, what the hell's going to happen now? The old man said this or said that. Like, even Triple H has got to be pulling his hair out, whatever's left.
True. So let's hit the wind down here. Let's head towards the finish. Talk about what else you got going on and what you got coming up next. I know you're doing a lot of stuff on Twitch. RTW is obviously heating up. You and Ocho are still dominating. What's coming up next for you?
Just keep my nose to the grindstone and try not to take on all the projects that I have, or at least try to scale back a little bit. Even Husey and I are thinking of doing a parody show of our own called The Dork Side of the Ring. Just kind of picking on some of the cringy fans that we have in the Twitterverse. So that's a little project we're taking on, but
that's an untapped environment there.
Dude, there's
it's insane. Yeah,
there's pure gold. I mean, you'll never run out of.
Yes. Oh, Jesus Christ. About.
Yeah. Twitter is so unique on its own. But I got RTW main event, the show that Ocho and I do, where it's just a comedy show. We do our good, bad, and ugly of stuff that happened to us during the week. We have a ridiculous top 5 contest that's going on right now. It's a complete comedy routine. If you guys haven't heard it, definitely check it out. We do a lot of funny stuff on that show. That drops every Thursday. RTW Rewind has kind of been on a hiatus for the last few weeks, but that is coming back next Sunday. That drops on the Hameen Media Group affiliate feed. I have my Twitch gaming channel, twitch.tv/RadRobGaming. I stream every Tuesday, Saturday night at 6 p.m. Central, 7 Eastern. I also have my YouTube gaming channel, Rad Rob Gaming. I got thousands of videos on there. God, what else am I doing? Uncanceled. I have to plug that because that's that's really what we're trying to push right now in the current climate we're in. Uncanceled with Drake Wirtz, who is a conservative Christian man who has kind of been canceled by the WWE because of his beliefs. He's running for office in the state of Florida. He's such a humble guy. He's such a great dude. That drops every Friday, anywhere podcasts are found, or you can go to patreon.com/uncanceledpodcast, where we have a $5, $10, and $15 tier, all affordable stuff. Tons of inside content from his run from WWE and NXT, as well as going over a lot of his matches, his old death matches, which are really interesting to watch. A lot of stuff I'd never seen before, and it's really eye-opening, some of the crazy stuff that they did with pizza cutters and light tubes and God knows what else. I also have a bowling podcast, Paz. I don't know if you're a bowling fan. Johnny Petraglia Jr., son of living legend, PBA Hall of Famer Johnny Petraglia Sr. We get together, Johnny, Ocho, and I. We break down bowling every week. It's called Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. That drops every Friday, anywhere podcasts are found. Yeah, I think that's it, dude. I know it's a lot, not nearly as much as you do, but I'm trying. I'm trying to be like
you're
you.
getting up there. Yeah, you're getting up there.
Trying to be like Paz. You're my hero.
Hey, you're getting close.
I'm
Not
getting
too
close.
bad there. Who, by the way, is your all-time favorite wrestler? Is it Macho Man?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yep, absolutely. Big Macho Man fan since '88 when he won the title at WrestleMania 4 in the tournament. I always tried to replicate that elbow on the Ted DiBiase where he jumped halfway across the ring. So yeah, huge Macho Man fan. So when the Mega Powers got together, I was psyched because I did like Hulk Hogan. But towards 89 and 90, it was just kind of wearing down on me. So when the Mega Powers split in 89, I was all over that. I was a big Macho Man fan. Was very sad when he had to retire at WrestleMania WrestleMania 7. So that was a big thing, but followed him in WCW. And then, I gained a lot more respect for Hogan when he turned heel and joined the NWO because it was a different side that we hadn't seen of Hogan since the early 80s. So I really dug Hogan at that point, just being a chicken shit heel. And just watching the fans in WCW throw all that garbage in the ring. I mean, it was quite a sight to see. But all-time favorite is Shawn Michaels.
Wow.
To me, the greatest performer in the history of the business, who could cut a promo, who could go for days on end in the ring, never really had a bad match, was the showstopper, was the icon, the main event. Mr. WrestleMania, I know you guys did that show a couple months ago.
Yep.
Who is Mr. WrestleMania? To me, Shawn was it. I loved him in AWA with Marty Jannetty and the Midnight Rockers, and I followed him into the WWF. And just, when he turned heel in 92, I loved it. Everybody remembers the barbershop throwing Jannetty through the window. It's just one of those iconic moments that you'll never forget. And just always followed him until the end. I actually went to his Hall of Fame ceremony in Atlanta, WrestleMania 27 weekend, and it was kind of it was full circle for me. I got a little emotional during his speech because just watching him for 30-something years, and then he chose to retire. It sucked. I still think he had more to give. His run after he got hurt was longer than his initial run, which is amazing to me.
Yep.
And just the incredible matches that he had with everybody. Even at 60-something-year-old Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels is absolutely the most gifted wrestler I've ever seen.
It's crazy to go out, not withstanding that tag match, but it's crazy to go out on that Undertaker match because it's like, man, you can still go. Shit, don't retire now. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I know. And even when he came back for the tag, when Triple H got hurt, Shawn's...
Well, he looked great shape. Yeah. The other guys, I don't know, but yeah.
No, they weren't, unfortunately. But Shawn stepped up and carried the rest of that match. He still got it. But yeah, I love what he's doing in NXT. I don't know if they're going to keep him down there with all the restructuring they got, but I think he's done a great job of developing talent down there. And he's got the mind for it, man. Wrestling was in his blood. And he's one of those lifers that'll never get out of it. But yeah, that's in my opinion the greatest wrestler that ever walked the face of the earth.
All right. Now, where can everybody find you? Give your Twitch, give your social medias, everything you got.
At RadRob Gaming on Twitter and Instagram. Twitch.tv/RadRobGaming. YouTube.com/RadRobGaming. Obviously, my podcast I talked about earlier, RTW Main Event and RTW Rewind, drop every Thursday and Sunday on all major podcast platforms, as well as Uncanceled with Drake Wirtz and Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. every Friday on all podcast outlets. Yeah, that's it, dude. We're going to be doing more stuff for Hameen in Realm when it gets officially fired up. we're looking for new talent. They want me to kind of head up the retro side of that. So we may be getting some old actors or old TV show personalities to do maybe some retro projects. So nothing official yet, but that's kind of what I'm going to be working on once they get the whole thing together. And unfortunately, all that stuff with the website is gone south. But once it comes back, once everything is stable and under control, there's going to be so much stuff with the Realm Network and Vince Russo's brand. If they keep the Realm name, I'm not sure if they are. But it's going to be unique. We're going to have the Voices of Freedom. We already have the comedy shows that are on there. We're going to do some retro stuff. I think reality TV is also might be part of that at some point. Vince has a lot of people that want to come on the network and do shows. So it's fun. And plus, you're part of it too, with all the stuff that you got going on there with the TMPT Empire, which I'm so happy that you merged up with Russo because as great as you're doing on your own, you have even more coverage now by joining Russo. So that was a smart move on your part.
For sure. Rob, thank you so much for all the time tonight. Really appreciate it.
Buddy, thanks. Anytime you want to have me on again, it was a blast. I always have fun talking to you. And I really, this is a bucket list of mine to be on a TMPT Empire show.
Wow,
so
nice.
I do appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for having me on.